alive. In my last entry to the series, I declared Smash Ultimate a dead game. And let's be honest, recently the community has felt like somewhat of a graveyard. People will argue that due to massive tournaments like Kaguribi taking place and being technically the biggest Smash tournament to have taken place for the game, that the series is still alive and well. However, with top players like Tweak, who we never thought would ever wane in terms of their interest in the game, announcing their retirement.
Is it maybe your last tournament?
Yes. Okay. It's my last tournament.
It's your last tournament?
Yeah.
So it's official?
For now, yeah.
Kowloon for now is your last tournament?
Yes.
I just hope you win. Thank you. I just hope you win. I think you deserve that.
Thank you.
There's really no arguing this. However, that's not what I'm going to be speaking about in this video at all. And instead, I'll actually be flipping the script and talking about how I believe the future of Smash is actually extremely bright, and the rebirth we will soon see is going to be the greatest and most legendary one in Smash history. Many people seem to have this assumption that there is no future Smash game coming, or Ultimate is really where it ends. However, I disagree with this fully. And I don't even blame you for necessarily thinking this way, because for a while, I was very convinced. And I must say, Sakurai didn't do much to help that, because about a year ago, it came out that Sakurai said he was working on one final game. And when Kirby Air Riders got announced for the Nintendo Switch 2, it was almost like the nail in the coffin saying he's not making any more Smash, which, because of the fact that he has directed every single game in the series, pretty much means there's no more Smash. Well, you may be interested to know that other people might be able to make Smash. And in fact, other people have made previous Nintendo games, and the director from the first game doesn't have to make every single game in the series. That's just not how it necessarily has to be. This is really interesting when you think about it, because we've never played a Smash game that is not made by Sakurai. And this could be really cool, and this could be very scary. I don't blame people for wondering if a Smash game without Sakurai is even something we would want. However, I think this is actually a really awesome time, because we will get to see Smash through a whole nother lens if this is the case. Part of the reason that I think a future Smash game would be so monumental is because of the rise in gaming post-quarantine, and really during the quarantine as a whole. If you don't know, during 2020 and onward, gaming has surged. Way more people play games than ever have in history. And it makes sense. When people were locked in their homes and had nothing else to do, they would find something to do online, and gaming is an easy way to do that. And now, coming out of that era, we have so many more gamers than we've ever had, which essentially means that the pool, or the amount of people that may be interested in a new Smash game, is insanely large. Hey guys, I just wanted to really quick interrupt this video to ask that if you've been enjoying the content recently, if you could subscribe, because surprisingly only 2% of the people watching this channel are subscribed, and 98% are not subscribed, which is really, really high. So I would really appreciate it if you could show your support and show me that if you guys are enjoying the videos recently, you could subscribe. And I also created a Twitter recently at MohammedSSBU. I will link it in the description down below. So feel free to follow that as well for behind the scenes content and funny posts and updates ahead of new posts on the channel. But aside from that, let's just get right back into it. Smash Ultimate is obviously the biggest game in the series to have released thus far. So it's really, really crazy to think that the next game could be much larger, and likely will be. And always upon a Smash game's release is the peak of the player base, because that's when everybody wants to get in on it. The noobs are all trying out the game, and it's really, really, really fun time in the game, because even the good players and the veterans who have played other games, they still have to kind of figure this one out and all the new mechanics, and everybody's just trying to learn alongside each other. So this is actually a period that I know a lot of people may be frustrated with the game, but sometimes you got to go through this frustration now in order to get to what will actually be a really awesome time in the next game. Gaming is also more international than ever, and with each Smash game's release, we have seen the arrival of new regions and audiences that become very, very talented at the game. Mexico was somewhat prevalent in Smash 4, but in Smash Ultimate, they really became a force to be reckoned with the greatest players of all time coming out from that region. And so an interesting thing to look forward to will be what regions pop up in the next Smash title and how will they dominate. For example, the Middle Eastern region may be very strong because in games like Tekken, they are really dominated by players in that region.
Pakistan surprised everyone when they proved they had some of the best Tekken players in the world. Arslan Ash won both EVOs that year, earning himself a Red Bull sponsorship. Atif Butt and Always Honey would get first and second place respectively at Tokyo Tekken Masters, and Bilal would win the ultra-stacked LCQ event at the TWT Finals.
Or Korea and China oftentimes dominate games like League of Legends, so maybe we'll have a big surge of players from there that have a lot of success in tournaments. This would be really, really interesting to see, in my opinion, because you really only see players from the same 4 regions in really every single tournament that you watch if they're a top player, those being Mexico, the United States, Japan, and Europe. So to be able to see these new regions would honestly be super cool because all the players would be fresh. It's quite well known in the Smash community that different regions see the game from a completely different perspective. Like if you look at a Japanese player's tier list versus an American player's tier list, these will vary so much from one another. However, 2 American players will oftentimes have tier lists that are quite similar, with maybe a couple differences here and there. And the playstyle is also extremely different in these regions, which kind of reflects the differences in things like a tier list. I think could be really cool because we'll also get to see how the game's played in those places. Something that I think people need to realize is that within the space of pop culture, Smash is so iconic. And everything stops whenever anything happens for Smash. I think it's been so long since a character has been released that people almost forget this. But you gotta remember that, whenever a new Smash character would drop, for example, when Steve dropped, Twitter literally broke for the day because people didn't even know what was happening. People were posting so much about it, the site literally crashed. And Smash is known far and wide across the internet, even for people who don't really play. People sometimes kind of narrow the Smash scene down to just the competitive scene, which can be a lot smaller at times, but if you're really thinking of it from a broad perspective, if a new Smash gets announced, everyone will be there. When they say everyone is here, they don't just mean characters, they mean the world. This would be such a big cultural moment in gaming, and we would likely see the biggest streamers and maybe even celebrities playing the game. I still remember when Ninja was playing against Jimmy Fallon on live TV, and he absolutely destroyed it. Let's also be honest, the scene just needs a fresh start. The game has gotten stale to a lot of people who are kind of bored of the same characters, the same players, the same playstyle, and past controversies. And all this kind of gets washed away whenever a new game releases. So a new game would be able to bring about a brand new flourishing scene, and a lot of the community members at that point would be brand new people who aren't even involved with the past at all, and brand new characters who really feel fresh and inviting and likely don't have the same issues that characters in Ultimate may have. It will be really cool because we'll be able to see the young talent of today and the kids that are really coming up and challenging the old veteran players like MKLeo and Tweak become the veterans of the next game. People like Spargo, Aquila, and Mia will really actually be the old heads going into the new game, and we'll have new kids stepping up to challenge them. And this is just the cycle continuing. It's a very natural thing, but it'll be really cool to watch as we'll have to kind of say goodbye to veteran players of today. People often say, you shouldn't take Smash so seriously. It's a party game and it was meant to be that from the beginning. So if you take it as anything else, you're wrong. And maybe you're right, because that was Sakurai's vision for the original game. However, if it is true that he isn't making the future game, it may actually have more of a competitive focus. People will be quick to say, whoa, Nintendo and competitive, are you insane? But actually, I don't know if you guys remember, Nintendo actually partnered up with Panda Global in order to make the Panda Cup, which was a Smash tournament circuit that went around the world. And Nintendo was very willing and happy to work with the competitive scene. You can tell this is clearly actually something they want to do these days, and they want to get involved within the scene. The only reason that this didn't take place has nothing to do with Nintendo at all, but rather because of controversy between the CEO of Panda Global, Alan, and the CEO of VG Bootcamp, Gimmer. And this really is something that was completely out of Nintendo's hands, but I could totally see in a future Smash game, competitive actually being a much higher priority, but Nintendo kind of keeping it under their control and their watch so that things like that never happen again. I think under the Nintendo eye watching down on you like Sauron, you're not going to be able to have things kind of fall through like this ever again. In fact, I think if they're developing a new game, behind the scenes, they're already planning exactly how competitive would work. They have tournaments planned out already. They would have everything under lock. If you don't have a license, they're going to shut it down. They're going to make sure everything goes exactly how they want, because that's how Nintendo is. If we're just being realistic, the fact that they wanted to get into competitive in the first place and then it failed the way it did, they're never going to let that happen again. So they took a chance and they were like, oh, okay. Now we know, we just got to be more hands-on with it. We can't let these people do it themselves because they clearly don't know how. And people will argue maybe in the comments like, no, give us another chance. It's not me, bro. Ask them. Okay, ask the big N, because that's not up to me. If you look back at Smash 4, players used to barely get paid anything, or maybe all the sponsor would do is just pay for your flight or your hotel to a tournament, and that's just it. And it didn't really matter to players at the time because, you know, they just wanted to play the game, and this would even happen at a very local level. Sometimes people would get $10 to wear a jersey at every tournament. You would have no-name players you had never met with a jersey. Everybody had a jersey back in Smash 4. But then these days, the world's changed, and so is the Smash scene. If you look at Ultimate, Cup of Noodles is pretty much at every single tournament, and that's a brand that everybody has heard of before. And you have big creators, you know, making their own teams like Moist Esports. So if you really look at things, the possibility for growth and funding within the scene is exponentially higher with each coming title. And I can't even imagine what a new release might bring. And I think a lot of YouTubers may follow in Moist Critical's footsteps and try to kind of make their own team. You know, I know that Mogul Moves partnered up with Moist Esports, and now it's just one team for their Valorant team. So I think this is really interesting, and I think a lot of other streamers and YouTubers will try to do this because it is kind of good representation. It's easy content to watch your players play and root for them, and it's just a cool concept, and it benefits both the game, the players, and the streamers alike. So this is something that I think is quite likely. Just like the rise of the Phoenix from the ashes, the Smash scene will return, and it will burn its way hotter, brighter, and bigger than ever into the hearts of fans all around the world. But what do you guys think? Do you guys think that the next Smash game will be as massive and great as I propose that it shall? Or do you think that this really is the end? And if so, that's tough. But be sure to like this video and subscribe because the support recently has been insane. Oh my gosh, like we were just at 500 subscribers a week ago. We're about to hit 800 subscribers. We might have hit 800 before I even put this video out. But anyways, thank you guys so much. I'm still on the grind, just gonna keep making better and better videos. And yeah, the support means a lot. See ya.